morning, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us again. Sorry for the technical difficulties. We're just going to roll right in. Trails do it all. They improve health, they provide recreation spaces, mobility access, foster economic development, support environmental preservation, and more. We recognize and celebrate the special role that trails play as mobility facilities because they best serve all ages, abilities, and income levels, and are a crucial part of making our communities safer. The conference theme is Moving Trails Forward, and we hope to provide a conversation and time today to do just that. So quick poll. Raise your hand if you love trails. Everybody, thanks. Now raise your hand if you're satisfied with the rate at which trails are being built across our state in your local community. Isn't that interesting that we all have this in common? Governments and park districts can only do so much, or are sort of trail building, whomever they are. They need support to plan for, design, fund, and even promote and celebrate trails. Nonprofits can be incredibly powerful as a nimble connector of resources, providers of much needed technical capacity, community connections, and partnerships, and staff level or even citizen level volunteer power for capital and program initiatives. Gone are the days of Partnerships 1.0, where nonprofits were only looked at as a source of support letters and trail plans or grants.
So we hope to do an interactive session today, and we hope to present to you a model for Partnerships 2.0 to break down barriers to trail development. And so though these examples are specific to us, Foothills Rails-to-Trails and Pierce County Parks, I really hope that common themes or trends emerge that, you can sort of pick up on and take with and run with it. So we recognize that every town and city and trail and jurisdiction is different. So we really hope to have you leave here today with some good ideas and maybe a homework assignment. Get excited. But thank you so much again for having us. So with that preamble, we're going to go ahead and do some quick introductions. So next slide. Perfect. So my name is Shayla Miles. I represent the Foothills Rails-to-Trails Coalition, and for those of you who don't know, the Foothills Coalition is the supporting nonprofit of the Foothills National Recreation Trail. So we do a lot as the coalition, but our primary scope of work is to support the build-out, maintenance, and advocacy of and for the Foothills National Recreation Trail. The Foothills Trail is in Pierce County. It currently runs from Puyallup to now Enumclaw. Woo! 24 miles. We're clapping because there was just a big trail opening last weekend that added 2.5 miles to the trail. So we're excited about that. And our vision at the coalition is a 52 plus mile connected mountain to sound trail. So with that, I will turn it over to Tiffany.
Thanks, Shayla. I'm Tiffany Odell. I'm the planning manager for Pierce County Parks and most of the planning team for Pierce County Parks for the last year. So we usually have a trails planner that hasn't been filled, that, has been a struggle for the last year. And we've had some really fun opportunities to sort of test out this partnership model and how we can really harness the power of the coalition to get more done in Pierce County. If you don't know very much about Pierce County, we are the second most populated county in the state. Pierce County is also a little unique in that close to half of our population, about 400,000 people, live in unincorporated areas. So county government functions both as a local service provider in a way that a lot of other county governments don't, as well as the regional and more county service provider. So while we have this amazing asset of the Foothills Trail at 24 miles now, which is super cool, the Foothills Trail is actually located on the urban fringe and serves most of the rural area and connects through rural areas and small towns. So as you can imagine, our mandate is also to serve those urban residents. So we really have this balancing act of, we have this huge demand in the urban area where we need to invest, where there hasn't been as much investment in infrastructure and trails, but we have a national recreation trail that's amazing. Much of the Foothills Trail has amazing views of Mount Rainier. So it's an interesting environment to work in. The Foothills Trail is also unique in that much of it is located along the Carbon River, which is a glacier-fed river. It is very dynamic. I know there are other, river trails. There's not a lot of glacier-fed rivers that are quite at the level of Mount Rainier glacier-fed rivers. So we sustain pretty significant trail damage on a somewhat regular basis. Part of this connection to Foothills Trail that we are envisioning takes us up into the High River Corridor, where we try to access Mount Rainier National Park. So not only is the existing trail somewhat challenging, but we've got some big obstacles to overcome that I think we can in order to make this broader connection eventually.
Okay. So now we want to know who's in the room. So real quick, just raise your hand if you represent a jurisdiction, a park district, a city, you're a trail planner. Perfect. Okay. Nonprofit. Who are the nonprofits here? Perfect. Citizen advocates. Awesome. Elected officials. Anyone? Oh, great. Awesome.
Consultants?
Anyone else? Who are you? Oh, hi, RCO. We love you. Yes. Okay, great. So thank you. Now we want to hear from you. Just a quick, 2 to 3 minutes. So you see a piece of paper, hopefully on your table. It is the sheet that says questions number 1. So there's 2 parts to the questions. So part 1. So there's 2 questions. Take 2 to 3 minutes. Just jot down real quick the answer. What is your biggest barrier to trail development? And who is your most important partner or key supporter? When you're done, share out with your partner so we know, and we'll come back in a second. Okay.
And there are a few pens on your tables. Hopefully they work and you can share.
Okay, I see most people done writing. So just real quick, who wants to share their biggest barrier? Just shout it out. What's your biggest barrier? Money, funding, humans, capacity. Okay. Land. Great. Other barriers? Landowners. Yeah. Lack of community vision. Okay.
I heard competing interests up here.
Competing interests. Great.
Environmental factors, crossing rivers and things like that. Topography. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Great. All right. Well, thank you so much. We're going to come back to all of this, especially your question number 2. But we're going to go ahead and roll into 3 case studies we have that showcase the coalition's role as a nimble connector and leverager of resources, community support, and partnerships, and how sort of the coalition has worked with Pierce County Parks to advance trails in our community. So with that, number 1.
All right, so case study number 1. This is a short section of our trail, or our future trail. So we have a master plan for the Foothills Trail that was done in 1989. It's not stale, but it's a little old. It envisioned things that, as it turns out, are entirely impossible to do in today's regulatory environment, and probably just shouldn't be done. So we've got challenges. So we're specifically looking at routing from the existing trail, where it has a trailhead in the small town of South Prairie, up towards the Carbon River entrance to Mount Rainier. We recently, Jennifer's actually in the room, was the consultant on this study, studied this 10-mile section to get from the existing trail out to the town of Carbonado. And this is where we really get into the almost backcountry, very rural, very small town, sort of gateway towns to Mount Rainier area. And this is also the most undeveloped entry point to Mount Rainier. It's actually the closest to Seattle and SeaTac, so a lot of people end up there on accident. But these towns are 500 people and aren't really quite ready for a trail. So we've got some routing issues for some portion of the trail. As we did this study, we realized there's a section of this trail that is ready to build. We own the land with the exception of about 100 feet that we're working on acquiring. It's pretty clear in terms of environmental constraints, and we're ready to build. So while we've got other challenges in other places, we can walk in and build this section of trail and really create this great benefit for these two small towns, because they're served only by a 55 mile an hour state highway with logging trucks and almost no shoulder. It's a really challenging place to be. So this would be the only active transportation facility connecting their two small towns. There's about 3 or so miles between the towns. There's already a trail corridor that people are using, but it's muddy. It's just sort of a mess. It's just land that the county has owned for a long time. As I mentioned, we're short-staffed right now. There was a conversation that happened about how we move this section forward. That happened maybe a year or more ago with Shayla and our former trails planner. And one of the things we decided to pursue is a partnership to really begin to advance this trail section.
Yeah.
And I'll turn it over to Shayla to talk a little more about that.
Yeah, and so as Tiffany sort of alluded to, there are a number of barriers here. Oops, we need to apparently keep this alive.
Sorry.
So a number of barriers. Thank you. So the capacity to move the Foothills Trail forward, so when we talk about human capacity, Pierce County Parks is really heavily focused on the urban areas in the county, as they should be, right? These are areas that have had just no investment historically, and so there's not the resources and sort of the man, woman, person power up in this section of the county. There's also some community trust issues up there because they've felt sort of forgotten. As Tiffany alluded to, there's an existing railroad grade that is a path that people use, but it is not maintained. It is not technically open to the public. So there's a lot of challenges because people just have a lot of issues with no eyes or maintenance on that part of the trail. So the opportunity here was identifying the National Park Service Rivers Conservation Technical Assistance Program, so RTCA. So this was literally a couple of years ago when I first started at the coalition, sitting down in a room with the former trail planner at Pierce County Parks and saying, gosh, how can we move this project forward when you literally have no money and no like human power to throw at this project? And so we identified RTCA because the county really wants community engagement out there. They want to hear from the community. What do you want to see for the trail? We want to hear, do they want a soft surface path? Do they want a paved trail like the rest of the paved Foothills Trail? And so we are really excited that this outcome is we have now a 5 to 6 figure in-kind basically grant from the National Park Service to provide this technical assistance that's going to move the trail planning process forward. And we are going to be able to build this section of trail in the next couple of years, far sooner than I think you originally, the county, thought we were going to. And the really cool part is, since this is part of the greater trail to the mountain, this is going to get people excited, and now they're going to be like bugging the county like, hey, we want more, we want the trail built. So that's the first case study we have. The second one, I am so excited about this one. So this is going to be, I think, for small town jurisdictions and our nonprofits in the room. So this case study involves a public-private partnership with a small town. The Foothills Coalition partnered with the city of Buckley to build a trailhead. And so there was no trailhead in this community. So I would send people out onto the trail in Buckley, donors, supporters of the coalition, and they were like, gosh, I don't know where to access the trail. Where's the bathroom? Where's a map? So it was really problematic that we didn't have any sort of way for folks to access the trail or feel safe and welcomed. And so the barrier here, obviously, lack of really just access and lack of access and amenities for the trail, as well as funding. Buckley is a small city in Pierce County, and they have a tight budget. They have a lot of other priorities than providing a nice trailhead. And so this was an opportunity where the coalition could bring sort of our resources and sort of our power to the community and help them get this done. The other barrier, just from the nonprofit standpoint, the coalition is a 40-year-old organization, but it was mostly volunteer run throughout its history. And so there was this can we really do this? Can we raise almost $1 million to build this really big, important amenity? And it turns out yes, we can if we invest in the right resources, if we take the right steps and do the right thing, listen to the community, put our partnerships together, yes, we can do this. So the opportunity here, obviously, a capital campaign for the coalition. For you nonprofits in the room, I'd be really happy to talk about this offline afterwards, but the capital campaign has moved our organization by leaps and bounds. It has opened up a world of foundation support, of funders that really wanted to get involved at the 5- and 6-figure level that we just never had before. So I really strongly encourage nonprofits to think of taking a capital campaign if you're ready for that. There was also an opportunity here to deepen relationships with the city of Buckley, with the council, and with the community members, because we were essentially coming in and saying, hey, we want to build this great asset and amenity for you. We're going to build this to your specifications, and we're going to tie a pretty bow on it and make it lovely, and then we're going to be here you go. So this was just, we've really, by leaps and bounds, just really deepened our relationship with the government and with the community organizations there. And then again, just the opportunity to strengthen our relationships with existing supporters, but also bring new supporters in. And this is also a really cool way that we're now able to honor the founder of the Foothills Trail, Doc Tate, and there's a bunch of other folks who've been involved for many, many years. And so this is just something that our organization felt really passionate about. And because we're leading this project, we can sort of make this space our own and, yes, make it good and useful to the city, but we can also do a little bit of selfish stuff and be hey, aren't we great? Look at the coalition, yay us. So the outcome is a new trailhead. We have the 25-stall parking lot installed in Buckley and 2 flush toilet restrooms. The rest of the trail does not have flush toilet restrooms installed. Well, okay, but they're really nice. And then we'll have this is a rendering, but a beautiful pavilion with really wonderful interpretive signage, a map pointing people to downtown Buckley. We talk about the economic development, so we'll be able to push people to the main street. And I'm so excited to just be able to roll out this welcoming space to people where they will know hey, a mile this way is another trailhead and a restroom, and a mile this way, there is nothing. So don't go that way if you need, if you need to use the restroom, just those basic things. So, all right. Oops, sorry. I think it's your, okay.
All right. As I mentioned, this year's been a little bit of a perfect storm. We had a bridge go into disrepair this year, go into failure. Back when the trail was envisioned to be built, there was this amazing vision for wooden bridges that would be, scenic and really represent the character of this old railroad line. As it turns out, those wooden bridges that were soaked in creosote and made of old growth are a lot different than the wooden bridges that we can build today. So this is we've had multiple wooden bridge failures on this trail, unfortunately. And this one came up pretty quickly. We had to close the trail. And as you can imagine, the trails community was not happy about this trail being closed. And Shayla mentioned earlier this lack of trust in the county. That is very real. And it's not all Parks Department, it's county and government in general. So we closed the bridge. We put up signs. We put up barriers. People didn't care. People found it to be their own personal challenge to climb over the barriers, throw their bikes over the barriers, show each other how to climb the barriers, and use this bridge. And so we spent, gosh, a couple of months responding to non-stop angry people about this bridge closure, elected officials asking for reports and engineering studies just for us to show them the bridge, like prove it, that the bridge needed to be closed. And we spent time doing that instead of the really important work of figuring out how to fix this bridge or replace this bridge. So we lost a whole bunch of time. And Shayla was probably spending as much time answering questions about this as I was, and we were both just sort of over it. So we sat down and figured out how we could work together on this, and we decided to bring it to the coalition's board because, again, they are the messengers in the community. And I don't know if we said this about the trail, but people drive from, like, this has been an interesting learning experience for me because the people I was hearing from lived in King County. They were driving from, Olympia. They were driving from Gig Harbor, and all of these places are a long ways from where the Foothills Trail is just to use this trail, and some of them every single day. And they were super angry about this. So we decided, and one of my other aha moments was that I follow the Foothills Coalition on Facebook, and my best friend of like 25 years sent a message on Facebook to the Foothills Coalition to ask about the status of the bridge, and I was like, there we go. Shayla, please take over all of the messaging about this bridge closure. And I'd like to say that it was magic, but we put together a good communication strategy, solid talking points, social media, a website, and frequently asked questions, and sort of handed that over to Shayla. Bob's in the room too. Bob is one of the leads of the Tacoma Washington Bicycle Club, and was also one of our really important messengers in the community, and it really felt like you could just feel the clouds lift. Like, we got these messages into their hands, and people quit calling me. And they quit demanding that, that we reopen this bridge. In some ways, that was really effective because the elected officials certainly heard from people how important this trail route is. But, yeah, it was massive opportunity. And now we're able to actually work on bridge replacement. Two other things that we learned from this, and this is still underway, this bridge is still closed. Number one, we tore the bridge down. People won't stop using the bridge. The bridge had to go. It was a serious safety hazard, and we just, even though they stopped calling me, they were still using the bridge. So the bridge went. We got elected official interest in this. People heard this was a priority. And now we know that we will also have the support to fund this bridge. We have design money, so we've started the design process. We heard that having a 3-year closure of our bridge was unacceptable. Loud and clear. So that was sort of, when you're doing things like this, you start big because you want to impress people by reopening the bridge in a year. You don't want to say you're going to open it in a year and to have it take 3 years. So we started at 3 years, and we've been able to dial that back. The bridge closure started in January of this year, and we will have this reopen by next summer if our funding package goes forward. And that is sort of our next big ask of this coalition that is so helpful for us, is to make sure that our supplemental budget request that will pay for construction that will start in January, pretty much as soon as that budget is signed, we'll be out there building this bridge. So we are absolutely looking to our partners like Shayla and Bob.
Yeah. So I think just to summarize, the coalition has really been able to sort of do a couple of things. Like, one, we're nimble. We are not a government agency, and therefore we have capital and we have capacity that we can move. We don't have to go out to a long bid process. We can pull in our parametrics and our Brewsties and Associates and be like, hey, get to work on this now. We are a connector and a collaborator. So trails are linear parks. They span multiple jurisdictions. The coalition can be like, oh my gosh, Pierce County, you need to talk to Buckley, and you need to talk to King County, and we all need to get in a room together. And I feel like the coalition is able to muster that a little bit easier than than Pierce County, instigating that. And then I really can't overstate just the relationship part, both the relationships with community members and like the trust that we've built in the community, because we go out and we listen to the community. We are the community, right? We're a nonprofit. We represent the people who want to use these trails, who use these trails every day. And we can take that power and be an incredibly powerful force for good and for bad, but mostly we want to be it for good. And so just again, to jurisdictions, I really implore that you start to broaden your mind of what, organizations that represent community can do for good to help you get trail projects done. So with that, we'll stop talking. We want to get you all talking. So this is breakout session part 2. So there should be a paper part 2. Sorry, I should have just put them on the same piece of paper. But you're going to go, you're going to take a couple minutes, go back to your list of partners that you identified in part 1. Any new ideas to leverage partnerships with them based on the examples that you heard. And then, this is your homework assignment. We would love for you to write down 2 or 3 people or organizations that you will commit to calling or reaching out to either at this conference, because there's a lot of us here, or after you leave. So take a couple minutes, and then we're going to share out and we're going to talk through some problems, and we'll have time for Q&A.
And while you do that, I'll add one more thing that we didn't say anything about. Shayla sort of holds the keys to the castle when it comes to elected officials. I can't call the executive. I can't call the county council. It can be really dangerous to have people, out doing your messaging for you, but building this relationship where I trust her, I know that she kind of understands what the challenges are, has been instrumental, and I think it will continue to be instrumental in our work with the coalition and other organizers. Is really, we often, want to put on blinders, and we're the ones that do this work, and we are not the only ones that do this work. And Shayla can have very frank conversations with elected officials that I would lose my job if I had. So, yeah, another superpower. We're running fast. We should have done more job. Just joking. No, you're good. You're fine. You're rocking it. I was thinking of inviting them to like share an example of their and then with them kind of connecting into the presentation, or should I just ask them? Yeah, you can ask them what problem they're facing, and what partner they're interested in, what partnership they're interested in leveraging.
Well, kind of a mixed bag. I have my personal trail stuff. I'm working with the folks on the trails. And then I went to Foothills County. Working on some I should probably have any illusions about Green Rivers Trail. I work for
Okay, let's talk. Because the model sheets actually, I'm trying to find the benefits I want.
I actually sat down and built a
Okay, let's talk.
Should I do that?
Okay, let's come back together. Okay, I'm hearing a lot of good conversations. Does anyone, we have some time to share, so does anyone want to share out like an example of like kind of the project or problem you're facing and sort of the flip side of like some partners that maybe you're thinking about? Does anyone want to share out? Be bold, be brave. This is a friendly group. Yes.
Okay, so I'm with the Foothills Rails Coalition,
Yes.
and we're kind of struggling with how to do fundraising to do maintenance and further the trail.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like to know, the Foothills Coalition is probably bigger than we are quite a bit. Like, what is your budget, and then what kind of capacity does going out and doing a campaign add? I mean, can you raise $1 million for a project?
Yeah.
Does the Foothills have a budget of $3 or $4 million in its reserves and things like that?
Yeah, gosh, this is like a nonprofit best practice operations question, which I love. I'll try not to get too much in the weeds, but yeah. So the coalition's budget right now is about 300 to 400,000 in terms of our annual operating budget, and then we have a special projects budget that is large right now because of the capital campaign. This has grown in the couple years that I've been with the coalition. When I first started, it was like less than $100,000. So we've really grown the budget. For a capital campaign, for a first capital campaign, I would encourage folks to start small. So we didn't want to start with like trying to raise, $5 million for land acquisition. We wanted to start, our fundraising goal was pretty reasonable. It started at actually like $325,000, and then it grew to about $500,000 with the public-private partnership match on the Buckley side to get to that over $1 million. So Buckley was doing the parking lot and the restrooms. Pierce County helped a little bit. So I would not recommend like a huge capital campaign for a first capital campaign, but you could absolutely raise, probably $1 million if you had the donor base for it. But I'd love to talk with you offline about fundraising. I also think if you're talking about like trail and deferred maintenance, the coalition has a great partnership with Pierce County Parks. Actually, about every year we tackle about 5 miles of routine and deferred maintenance along the trail. We do this in partnership with Parks, and the coalition basically provides the volunteer labor, and Parks provides like all of the tools and all of the, like they identify the problem spots on the trail where they need maintenance help, and that's been a really great partnership. And for fundraising purposes, funders love those work parties. We've gotten the American Trails Association, the Bronco Wild Fund has supported this work. We've actually reached out to, we overfunded that program this last year, and so we've got way more funders than we actually need funding for, which is a good problem to have. So, yeah. Anyone else have an example they want to share? And we can talk offline. We'll share our contact information, and like I'm super happy to talk to everyone and have like coffee meetings and like hear about all the ways that we can partner and help and figure things out. So, yeah.
You guys think in your experiences that if you hadn't had this bridge that was bad and had to close it, creating the kind of awareness of this problem and how many people like that such a bridge, that you would have got the same support and funding from a campaign without that bridge being closed first, and
Well,
the trail being broken and creating the public push towards that. Even though it was a setback, wasn't it kind of like a gain in the long run to have that attention?
Well,
I love that perspective. I don't know if we're quite ready to call it a game, but
well, I would
maybe
say,
next year.
Yeah, about 92% of our funding for the campaign was secured before that bridge broke down, and a lot of our funding has come from private foundations that have. I mean, we had a lot of individual donors as well, but those individual donors came in before the breakdown. I think the bridge situation is interesting because I think it really has elevated the importance of the Foothills Trail specifically, because like Bob was calling elected officials like every day. I was bugging them. Everyone was talking about this. So I think I think that is a good thing from the standpoint of when we go to fund it's going to have, you know, over $1 million price tag, or more potentially, right, to replace this bridge. And so I think it's laid the groundwork for the electeds that approve the budget to understand just how important it is. So yes, we'll turn it into something shiny, but it's a turd. So yeah, we'll shine it up. But yeah.
Will you be fundraising for that project as well, or is that mostly going to come through agency budget?
Yeah,
We'll know in November.
Yeah, I'm hopeful that it will come for agency budgets. The cool thing about the coalition is, you know, I inherited this really strong organization, and so I had a really great framework to just build up. And my background is fundraising and nonprofit leadership and management, so I feel like I was able, like I started off really in a strong place because of the work that was done before me. So we are in a position where we do have financial capacity to help with projects, but it's, you know, it's kind of like when you're building trails, you don't want to try to pay for a trail with like the equivalent of like a bake sale. And so where I think we shine best is being able to, like, for example, with the White River Bridge that just opened, which was the partnership between King County, Pierce County, the cities of Buckley and Enumclaw, RCO, and the Foothills Coalition, we leveraged a $50,000 community match. We showed that to RCO, and RCO was like, great, here's all the points, thanks RCO, and they gave $3 million, and that helped get the project fully funded. So I would see potential for something like that rather than the coalition just like outright funding it.
Yeah, and we really want to use that power only when we need it. So right now for this bridge replacement, we've got other capital projects where we've got project savings, and so we're sort of cobbling together the funding. We just need the council to sign off and say, yes, you can put it on that project instead of something else. So this is a situation where I want to leverage the coalition's advocacy arm. I want them to go and have the hard conversations and have them make sure that it is abundantly clear that this thing needs to open next summer in order to move this forward. I should knock on wood or something when I say I don't need their money. But this, I mean, another cool thing about the situation with the trail I mentioned, this goes through some tiny towns. I mean, Wilkeson and Carbonado are 500 people each. I'm not sure how big Buckley is. Probably, I don't know, 5,000 or something.
I think it's under 5,000.
Yeah, small towns. And where the trail goes through the town is responsible for the trail. The county maintains everything in between the towns. Often we help build the trail. They're responsible for maintenance. So that's really where like this capital campaign in Buckley shines, is that Buckley doesn't have the resources. They don't have the technical expertise. They can lean on the coalition. And if needed, the coalition can lean on the county and elected officials a little bit. There is a small match coming from the county that was earmarked in a budget by an elected official going to that project. So there are opportunities like that where, being strategic about where we help each other and how we help each other is important. And I will say early on, I was amazed that I was talking to Shayla on the phone at least once a week.
Yeah.
Now, I don't want to say that I wasn't excited to get those phone calls. There was just a lot going on. And now I'm like, I need to talk to Shayla. Let's talk. I need to track down Shayla. So I think, yeah.
Yeah, I would say to nonprofits, if you can get in a room with your parks or trails planner, once a month, once a week, the more you know about what they're going through and the more you can be like, how can I help you? The more they will then be able to accelerate the trail building projects that are meaningful to your organization. And again, on the flip side to the jurisdictions, I would say absolutely, please. I know it may feel like small potatoes. Sometimes I feel like, gosh, all these planners have so much going on, and we're talking about Pierce County is huge, and the Foothills Trail is one part of it, but like we can do so much. Like we can bring that community voice to the elected officials. Like just it's really worth it. It's worth the phone call. And to the citizen advocates here in this room, gosh, like you really matter. And like if you're not connected with an organization, like plug into an organization. Come talk to me. I will absolutely use you at like the state level. We're going into a big Washington State budgeting year where we're going to be asking for $150 million for the Washington Wildlife Recreation Program to be fully funded. So like that is a really big deal, and we like need every single person. So okay. Any like other examples, or like I wanted to give you guys time to talk, so it wasn't all us talking. Any tactical examples we want to talk through? Yeah.
I really liked your point about wellness in the organization, like being a partner with people. I'm working on a project in the Columbia River Gorge, and it's with the U.S. Forest Service and Friends of the Columbia Gorge, and I think it's a really great partnership because the concept for this trail started because there were user trails, unsanctioned user trails throughout this really beautiful area, but going through places where there's sensitive wildlife habitats, local resources, and U.S. Forest Service realized it's mostly on their land. They need to do something about this, but the restrictions of the national scenic area, also just U.S. Forest Service being a government entity, has to go through a lot of really stringent processes. So having Friends of the Columbia Gorge be one of our partners is great because they have such deep community support. People in the area really trust them.
Yeah.
They have a lot of experience working through scenic area regulations. I think they have the ability to fundraise and get people really excited about this project in a way that the U.S. Forest Service may not have the capacity to do so. So the nimbleness to just, we realized we wanted to do additional focus groups with people in the area, and the Friends of the Gorge said, okay, we'll just go quick fundraiser and get more funding to do this outreach. And
Yeah.
that was something that just happened really quickly, and it was amazing having that advocacy group to lead that and be able to be quick.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, I love Friends of the Columbia Gorge. I'm a donor.
Nice.
Yeah, they're cool.
I'm out of Skykomish, and we have the Iron Goat Trail, and one of our trailheads is right on Highway 2, and so we were able to partner with Washington State Department of Transportation to get a big National Scenic Byway grant. That was years ago. I don't know if that's an option. I mean, if there's scenic byway or transportation funds for, alternative transportation.
We are in this interesting place with Pierce County, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but Pierce County Parks does not like federal funding, so that is very, very limiting.
Why?
And it is a whole thing, and we're not gonna open that can of worms. But that really limits us because there's a ton of federal funding right now, right? ATIP, RAISE, all of these great programs that are meant for active transportation and all these cool infrastructure projects. And Pierce County is like, nah, we're just gonna try to do things with our one trail planner and our tiny budget. So Tiffany knows I love her, so I can say these things, I hope.
As I stand here as Pierce County government. Yeah. It's complicated.
Yeah. But
As the coalition, are you able to take the lead on any of the permitting processes, or is that all fall into the county? Is there a clear delineation responsibility?
yeah, that's a great question. It's project to project, but I would say mostly the county is responsible for permitting for the Buckley project because we're the builder of the infrastructure. We have contracted with an expert in we have a landscape architect, and we're working with parametrics, and they're really helping to guide us and lead that permitting process. Those permits are going to the city and not the county. So it just depends on the situation and kind of where the resources are needed. But the coalition is a shop of one. We have one employee. It was me. It's now Bree. Hi, it's just us. So yeah, it's challenging, so we would typically like hire for that sort of thing. Yeah, I hope that
Yeah.
answers your question.
Specific to permitting, Pierce County Parks is interesting. We're actually pretty flush with staff when it comes to like design, engineering, permitting, and the like moving a project forward. Our challenge is planning, concept, public engagement. That's where we're really short. So
Council does not find that sexy.
no, they're like, get this project done, but as it turns out, it's really difficult for a project like the Wilkeson to Carbonado Trail section that we talked about. If we've got two towns that don't trust Pierce County government, we're not going to get very far unless we go in and talk to them first. And if we don't have the capacity to do that, that project will never move forward. So that's where we turn to the coalition and say, you've got relationships out there. Help us. I will stand behind you in the shadows, and I will give you all of my knowledge about, how to do this public participation and this public engagement. I need you to be the face of it. I need you to be the messenger, because if I walk in as Pierce County, I will hear every bad thing that the county has done to this town for the last 50 years. And while that's valid, it doesn't get us very far. It's the, short version.
If there's a maintenance project that goes beyond what volunteers would normally do, like it involves heavy equipment or paving or something like that,
Yeah.
is that purely the parks, or do you ever go out and pay for that to be done?
Yeah, we're trying to broach this because in the past the coalition has just done it, and it's not great. They're laughing because like we've had heavy equipment on the trail and have put in culverts and it's not been permitted, and we don't want that. So moving forward, there are places we've identified on the trail that are not technically open to the public, that need the heavy machinery, that need permitting, and that's sort of an ongoing conversation. But like the big thing is like trust. Like 2 years ago, if I would have asked the county, like, hey, can I please like help replace this, get this culvert replaced, and we'll hire a contractor, we'll go through the permitting process, like they would have been like, ha ha ha, no. Now I feel like we're in a better place where like if the coalition really wanted it, we could say, hey, this is really important to us, and we could potentially do it, but we would absolutely need to follow like, their standards of like, whatever, going out to bid or fair wages or whatever regulation they have.
Well, and one other piece of this is you have to think about if they're working on some of the deferred maintenance that's like the soft skills that people can go out and do, that frees up our team to be able to do the stuff that requires heavy equipment and that requires more skill. So that's, I think, still a win, even if we never allow them to use heavy equipment.
And I will shout out the backcountry horsemen here, because they will just go out and like take care of down trees without like anyone really even knowing. So like, I know that's not great, but like, yeah. But we need that too. So yeah. Okay. We're good on time. We've got 8 minutes. If you have more questions, we can take them. Yeah.
Just real quickly, so I know when I talked in the past, and I was with this rail trail organization back in the 1980s. I lived in the area. I remember when the bicycle was running effigy, because they didn't want to see a trail come through on the old rail line. So congratulations on how far you've been moving forward.
Thank you.
Also want to say now, this borders on political. It is political, so you're welcome to answer it. Blast out an answer, or you're welcome to ignore it as you wish. You can be quiet.
I don't think we have any Pierce County elected officials in the room, so.
How much of the funding that you're talking about is already in-house, it's already there to be taken? How much of it is dependent on initiative, fall 2024 initiative success or failure?
Most of it is in-house.
Yeah, most of the funding for the trail comes from the regular sort of, bread and butter budgeting that Pierce County does. That's funded by, obviously a lot of different things, but we have what's it called? Sorry, I'm gonna break my brain.
Fee?
Yeah, the Parks Impact fees.
So interestingly in Pierce County, and I can't say that I necessarily agree with this, trails are not really considered active transportation. We have we have trails in the parks department, and we have active transportation, and nary the two shall cross, much to my chagrin, often. This bridge closure has been super interesting in opening those conversations and making it abundantly clear to people that trails are active transportation, especially where we're serving communities where there is no transit service. There is a narrow, windy, steep, no shoulder, heavily used by logging trucks state highway that we can't even get bikes on roadway signs. Pierce County can't even recommend it as a detour because it is so unsafe. I think it's becoming more and more clear that trails actually are active transportation, and trails work for everyone, as it turns out. I have a 4-year-old, Shayla has a 3-year-old. We're not, I might have worn spandex and ridden my road bike on the side of the road before my kiddo was here. I don't do that anymore. I rarely do that because I'm usually with her, and she's pedaling and, giving me a heart attack anytime we're riding on a road or a sidewalk. So yeah, all users can use trails. So that's, yeah.
If you're a jurisdiction that has gone through the transition of the isolation of trails are just recreation and active transportation and have fixed that, let us know. We'd like to hear from you. We'd like to learn those lessons because Public Works is a beast and has all of the resources, and then Tiffany is the one trail.
Especially
person.
county public works.
Yeah.
If you're in a city, you may feel more of a mandate to build sidewalks and complete streets and things like that. Our county, even though it's the second most populated and half of our population lives in unincorporated areas, still has a little ways to go in terms of active transportation being a priority investment. So we're working on it.
Yeah. Any final questions? Yeah.
This might be a longer question than we have time for, but one of the struggles here in Chelan County when we look at active transportation pathways is knowing who's going to operate and maintain a trail system long term. We don't have a parks department or a large scale parks district. And so I'm curious, in your work with the Foothills Coalition, how integral are you in bringing all of those together? Is it interlocal agreements? How is it operated and maintained, and what role does the coalition play in setting any of that up?
Yeah, I feel like we're really fortunate in that our partners automatically our landowners of the trail are already maintaining sections of trail, so it is sort of built in. If we're talking about opening and expanding the trail, they're thinking about okay, we know that this is going to need to be maintained. For example, with the National Park Service RTCA grant, we already are in conversation with Pierce County, okay, that you're going to have to then go and maintain this trail, right? So, but we can talk offline, and I'd love to hear more about it, and I love this county and the trails here, so, yeah.
Well, and Foothills is an existing trail, so
Yeah.
those conversations in many cases happened 30 years ago before we were standing here. Pierce County is building new trails with all sorts of different models. We have trails in right-of-way now where we're working with Public Works, hey guys, why would we maintain this trail if you're out there with your street sweeping program on a regular basis? Yeah, we'll drive through and pick up the garbage and respond to trail issues, but this is in the right of way. We're gonna pay for it, and you guys probably should maintain it. So those conversations are happening. We're building a trail in partnership with the Tacoma Water Pipeline right now. And we've got an agreement in place, an interlocal agreement that really calls out, it's a 50-year easement, and essentially they're going to continue business as usual in terms of maintenance. So they're already mowing the easement, they're already out there, they're dealing with encampments already. So we're we're increasing recreational usership. We'll go out and do garbage pickup, and we'll partner with them if there's an encampment that's on the trail, but looking at totally different models depending on the trail and who's out there already, and trying to make it work for everyone.
Okay, well, I would just like to close us out by saying, thank you so much for listening to us. We really hope that this session was helpful and got your, brain going. And we'll just leave you again with every single example here today, at least for my part, pretty much started with 2 people getting together in a room and talking. we may have been addressing issues that were informed by community or informed in a trail plan, but it was like the act of two people getting together and figuring out how can we start to like take bites out of this elephant. And so it's just, their relationships are key, and I just want to leave you with that. And I hope you have 2 to 3 people for your homework that you will be following up with. So I also want to put up this slide just because I think, did we give our
We
information?
don't have
Okay.
it. Yeah.
Well,
I have
anyway,
business
if you'd
cards,
like
so, yeah.
to connect with us offline, we're happy to give you our information. I'd love to hear from each and every one of you and have 50 different conversations about what's going on in your community with trails, and just do anything I can to share, knowledge or advice, or just like a sounding board, because the work that we're doing is really hard and it takes a lot of time, but it's like so meaningful. So again, just like thank you for all the work that you're doing to build trails. So yeah, the end.